Have you ever heard about the Lady of Fatima and her prophecy about the end of the world? In 1917, 3 children experienced a miracle in Fatima, Portugal. According to the children, the Virgin Mary came down and showed them a vision of hell. That became known as the first secret of the Lady of Fatima. The next time the children saw the Lady of Fatima, she gave them a message that World War I would be ending soon. But she warned that a worse war was coming. She specified that if Russia didn't change their ways, that it was going to lead to a lot of destruction on the planet. A year after this, World War I did end. This became known as the second secret of Fatima. She told the children that she would be back on October 13th, 1917 to reveal the biggest secret of all. On that day, 30,000 people showed up to witness a miracle. And the Lady of Fatima revealed to the children the darkest secret of all. She told the children that they were not to reveal the secret to anyone until 1960, where it should go directly to the public, not to the Pope. One of the children, Lucia, grew up to be a nun and was devoted to keeping the secret of Fatima until it was time for the public to know. In 1941, Sister Lucia became ill, and a bishop forced her to write down the secret to give directly to the Pope so that the secret would not die with her. Although Lucia recovered, when the Pope saw the secret, he declared that it will never make it to the public and banned anyone from revealing it. At the time, Malachi Martin, a priest and exorcist, was working in the Vatican. He read the third secret, but under oath could never reveal it to the public. By the 1990s, Malachi Martin started to reveal the secrets of the Vatican. He claimed that the breath of Satan had taken over the Pope and the Vatican and started to reveal it in his books. Although he revealed many secrets, he was under oath to never reveal the secret of the Lady of Fatima. Near the end of his life, he did several radio interviews on Coast to Coast with Art Bell. He said he would not reveal the secret, but that if someone knew the secret, he would confirm or deny whether they were right. One woman said that she was told by a Jesuit priest that when Pope John Paul read the secret and it said that the last pope would be under Satan's control, that he fainted because he thought it was him. Malachi confirmed that this was true. Another person said that it would be about a false religion and the Antichrist. Malachi confirmed that this was true. You know I'm going to bring it back to Behold a Pale Horse. He claims that U.S. intelligence agencies believed that this event might have been alien manipulation, so they utilized their Vatican moles to get the secret. In the next part, we're going to dig deeper into the third secret, how it lines up with the Nostradamus prophecies, the Book of Revelations, and Malachi Martin's strange death. Hey guys, welcome back to my apocalyptic prophecy series. And to the people in the comments losing their shit about the way that I pronounced this word, seriously, calm down. It's not the end of the world. Oh wait, it is. Let's get into it. The apocalypse, right? That's what we're talking about. So we left off with Father Malachi Martin, who said that although he would not reveal the third secret because of his oath to the Pope, he did reveal in a Coast to Coast interview that all of the contents of the secret could be found in the Book of Revelation from chapters 12 to 17. This documentary explores the life and death of Malachi Martin. One of Malachi's closest friends was former CIA agent Robert Moreau. Moreau would often drop off Malachi at the exorcisms and wait there till he was done to pick him up. Moreau shares this haunting story. Malachi was meeting with a little girl to evaluate whether she was possessed or not. He determined that the girl did need an exorcism. Robert Moreau says that when Malachi was getting back in the car, that this little girl did the most horrifying, vile gesture he's ever seen a child do, and that it still haunts him to this day. Malachi died shortly after this interaction. He never got to perform the exorcism on the girl. Robert Moreau and Malachi's close friends said that Malachi said he was pushed down the stairs by an entity. Malachi died of head trauma from the fall. William Cooper claims that the U.S. government got a hold of the secret. He said the secret is about the Antichrist and how he would pretend to unite the world, but it would actually be a false religion, which would lead to World War III. That would lead to nuclear destruction. Most people would die, and the return of Christ would happen shortly after. In this book, Convoluted Universe Book 3 by Dolores Cannon, it said that the second coming of Christ is not about Jesus reincarnating into another human body, but that actually the second coming of Christ is humanity reaching Christ consciousness. Christ consciousness is considered the highest state of intellectual development and emotional maturity. It's the awareness of the higher self as part of a higher universal system. And it was about reaching the level of consciousness that Christ was trying to teach the people. Let's see how everything lines up to the book of Revelation. And this is going to be very summarized. The Bible starts off with a serpent who tempts Eve. By the book of Revelations, it has become a 7-headed serpent beast. And this beast would grow so powerful that it would eventually force everyone to take its mark either on their forehead or on their hand. This is often interpreted as thoughts and actions. It talks of Babylon. Babylon has been considered Persia, Greece, and Rome, but many believe it's more of a symbol for the systems of power, and how these systems use structures of the government to create a false god for everyone to obey, and that these Babylons would continue to rise and fall until they followed the Lamb. The Lamb is a symbol for Christ. In an upcoming video, we're going to get deeper into this 144,000 and the Lamb. But first, we're going to finish with the book of Revelations and how it relates to Nostradamus. Hey guys, welcome back to my Apocalyptic Prophecies series. This is part 3. Make sure you go back and watch the previous parts. We left off with the book of Revelation. Father Malachi Martin said that the contents of the third secret were in chapters 12 to 17. So let's do a really quick summary of those. We have a 7-headed beast, and that this beast would be so powerful that it would be able to make everyone take its mark. Whether that person is influential or not, rich or poor, free or enslaved, that no one would be able to buy or sell anything without taking this mark on their forehead or on their hand. And like we said earlier, many believe that this represents thoughts and actions. This is also where we get the number 666. It said that in the original texts, the number is written in Hebrew, which you could see above, and translated to English is www, just saying. It speaks of Babylon, which at the time of writing it would have been Rome. Throughout the Bible was Greece and Persia, and many would consider Babylon some of our modern cities today. But it's often interpreted that Babylon is the systems of power, the structures of control, and governments taking the place of God. It also speaks of the New Jerusalem, which is basically heaven on earth. In the New Age movement, this is called the New Earth, or 5D, the fifth dimension, and it speaks of the 144,000 souls that stand with the Lamb. And they say the Lamb would be Christ. As I discussed earlier, Christ could also be considered Christ consciousness, which Christ consciousness is basically the teachings that Christ was trying to teach people for them to fully embody it themselves. We'll get more into the prophecy of 144,000 later, and then we get to the final judgment. This is the people of Earth's last chance to make their decision. It talks about the people of the grain and of the grapes. The people of the grain would be God's people. The people of the grapes are those who are still intoxicated with the ways of Babylon. The 7 heads of the beast are given their chance to make their decision or face hell on earth. And then it goes through the 7 bowls. And each one just gets worse and worse, disease, everything, until we get to the bowl, which is Armageddon. And then there's the harlot of Babylon, which we're going to get to in a later video. And these 7 bowls do correlate to some of the Nostradamus prophecies of what he says will happen in the end of time, before a golden age. The return of Christ, the second coming of Christ, the new earth, 5D, whatever you want to call it. Nostradamus was a physician during the Black Plague in the 1500s, the Black Plague being a pandemic. After losing his family to the plague, Nostradamus turned to astrology and psychic vision. But you should know by now, I'm not going to give you the cookie cutter information. I'm going to break down these 3 books where a woman regresses to a past life where she's a student of Nostradamus. And Nostradamus is like, good, I've been trying to contact the future. get a book of my quatrains so I can help you translate. And this is the part that I am most excited about, because we're going to talk about the books that literally broke my mind. As we know, Nostradamus was a physician in the 1500s during the famous pandemic, the Black Plague. And later in his life, he started having psychic visions, which he started recording and later published as his prophecies. These prophecies are written as quatrains. A quatrain is basically a 4-line poem, and he almost wrote them like riddles. So let's get into these really interesting books. These books were written by Dolores Cannon. I love Dolores Cannon. In the 1960s, Dolores Cannon was a hypnotherapist. She helped people deal with trauma and phobias, and then some of her clients started regressing to past lives. So she started to check out the information, and it was checking out. How did people know things about places they've never been or never read about? In about 1986, a woman came to Dolores out of pure curiosity, wondering if she had any past lives, and she ends up regressing to a time in the 1500s where she's a student of Nostradamus. And Nostradamus is like, yeah, it's about time. I've been trying to contact the future. I gave you guys all of these prophecies and you're not even paying attention to them. And Dolores is like, contact the future? Where are you now? Are you dead? And he's like, no, I'm not dead. Time is simultaneous. He's like, the future? God, you guys really just don't learn anything, do you? And this is one of the best things about this book series, is that Nostradamus is a huge dick. And he's super pissed off, which makes the whole thing more enjoyable to read. So he's annoyed. He's like, go and get a book of quatrains so I can translate it for you idiots. He's like, you know where to find me. Come back when you have the book. So the woman wakes up from this regression and is like, she's freaked out. Dolores is like, oh shit, well, let's get the book and then we'll put you back under. And the woman's like, no, not for me. So the woman ends up telling her, look, I'm not doing this. I'm afraid. I'm leaving the state. I'm moving to Alaska. I don't want to have anything to do with this. And Dolores is like, Nostradamus is in the 1500s, simultaneous time, asking us to translate his quatrains. She's like, yeah, no. So Dolores convinces her, please, can we just do it one more time? So the woman agrees, and they end up translating some of the quatrains. But there's like 1,000 of them. So she's like, tough shit, basically, and moves to Alaska. So Dolores finds another woman, Brenda, and regresses Brenda back to talk to Nostradamus. And they start translating quatrains. But then Brenda needs to get a night job and is like, sorry, I can't. So then Dolores gets another guy, Phil, who's in a lot of her books. And he starts seeing the end of the world and is like, nope. So then she puts an astrologer under, and Nostradamus gives the birth chart of the Antichrist. Hey guys, welcome back. This is my apocalyptic prophecy series, and we're looking at the birth chart of the Antichrist. If you're wondering where this information comes from, go back and watch part 4 of this series. So when John the astrologer goes under hypnosis, since they have to use a different method, because unlike the first girl, he didn't have a past life with Nostradamus. And I'll explain that method in a different video, but I know you guys are very eager to see this birth chart. Well, here she is, and it's the fucking Antichrist's birthday today. Yeah, seriously. Pause it, take a closer look. Wasn't thinking Aquarius, but yeah. Okay, so one thing I'd like to note is that we see how everything is basically right over here. And I'm no astrologer, but basics are definitely, if everything is all on one side in one spot, that does show a lot of imbalance. Okay, so I want to note that Nostradamus did not give dates. Nostradamus says that in our time, the calendar has been changed. Therefore, he wanted to give the planetary alignments as close as he could. And then the astrologer used those alignments to try to calculate a birthday. So So this is very important because I'm a researcher, and of course, I believe I know who the Antichrist is. They are a world leader. It's not Trump or anything like that. Like, come on, with the political theater. Even at one point of the book, they ask Nostradamus about one of the elections, and he's like, don't insult the information I'm giving you. Like, no. He's talking about, like, bigger issues here. He says a lot of the planets are in Aquarius, that the planet Uranus opposes these Aquarian placements in the sign of Leo, in the 7th house. He says that Pluto will be very important in his life, and that when Pluto moves into Sagittarius is when things will change. Pluto was in Sagittarius from 1995 to 2008. This will be an influential time in his life, and the person I'm thinking it is came into power during those years. His Neptune is in Scorpio. Now, I would like to note, and this shows simultaneous time is actually happening here. Nostradamus is talking about Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto, but none of those planets were discovered in his time. Did Nostradamus learn about these planets from Dolores and John the astrologer? Tag your astrologer. I want to see what they think. And next, we're looking at more traits of the Antichrist.
On her rabbit hole with her on these apocalyptic prophecies.
Apocalyptic prophecy series, and we're looking at the birth chart of the Antichrist.
I myself have trouble interpreting Nostradamus because he's very cryptic and some of his translations just got like double, triple translated and out of context. But for what it's worth, I mean, it's on the record like that this chart is very similar.
If you want to stop me, you're gonna have to fucking kill me!
Hey guys, welcome back to the Apocalyptic Prophecy series. We're still breaking down the Conversations with Nostradamus books by Dolores Cannon. In the last video, I posted the birth chart of the Antichrist, and a couple of you posted the name that I think it is. But I deleted your comments, but I'm not gonna die for your entertainment on TikTok, okay? And you might ask, why are you protecting the Antichrist? I'm protecting myself. And Nostradamus says that this is his destiny, and that actually while he's still alive, when all of this horrible stuff is happening and he's gaining more and more power, the Antichrist's ego and paranoia is going to get so extreme as his power grows that he's going to reveal the cabal and everything under the Vatican, and that this is part of a big karmic experience for him, that he's already going to be clearing some of the negative karma while he's still alive because of the truth that he's going to expose to humanity, which will be part of this golden age coming. Let's talk about the mark of the beast. As we know, this is in the book of Revelation. What's the significance of WWW? Well, not sure exactly, but the person who invented it was an employee of CERN, whose logo is also 666. Dolores asks Nostradamus, what is the significance of 666? John says that Nostradamus is showing him columns of numbers. Now keep in mind, these hypnosis sessions were occurring throughout the 80s. It took Dolores several years to translate all of the quatrains, but computers were not readily available, and neither was the internet, obviously. So Nostradamus says that there will be a worldwide communication system. He said that the 666 more so represents the communication system, that it's not his name. Now here's where it gets interesting. Nostradamus talks about what sounds a lot like the mark of the beast. He says there will almost be this invisible tattoo that will be painless and undetectable to the eye, which will be inserted into the forearm or the hand, and that there would be equipment to scan whether someone had it or not. And people would need this in order to go shopping, buy food, or enter certain places that are necessary for their work or career. He says there will be a resistance movement against the Antichrist. He says that this resistance group will be aware of what's happening, but no one is going to listen to the underground. And these renegades will not be able to fit into society, and that they would be people from all different walks of life, financially, religiously, spiritually, and they will try to overthrow, but they won't be able to, and that these people will live as outcasts. And guys, remember, calm down. Don't freak out in the comments. This is for entertainment. This is for fun. I'm not implying anything. I know we went real deep down the rabbit hole, okay? And we're gonna lighten things up with a personal story. We're gonna take off the creepy background, and I wanna tell you guys about my journey down this Antichrist rabbit hole, because I know it's not easy. This type of information is a lot, and it may or may not be true, and we also have the ability to create our reality. So we don't want to create a reality that ends this way. But, you go to work the next day. My coworker's like, what's up? I'm like, dude, you know who the Antichrist is? And they're like, sick. Who? Are you gonna help me stop him? No. So I'm like, I can't go about my daily life knowing this. So in the Nostradamus book, the woman Brenda, who Nostradamus hated, she knew about tarot cards. So Nostradamus is like, finally, this idiot gets something. And tarot is almost like a language of its own. Each card is like a representation, similar to like a language like Chinese. Like it's a symbol that has a meaning. And each card is similar to that. So Nostradamus was able to present a big idea to her through identifying people as cards. So Nostradamus says the Antichrist is the Hierophant. Pause and read if you want to know what this represents. So I'm kind of freaking out. Like, what the fuck do I do with this information? Why would I know this? Do I have to stop him? And if I do, I will. I'll find a way. So I'm sitting in my apartment like, no, really, what do I do? Like, seriously, I need like a higher something to tell me what the fuck I do. And the thing is like, if I were to like do something to the Antichrist, I would be karmically attached to him for like all of my lifetimes. And do I really want that for my soul? To keep incarnating with this asshole for like ever? So I'm like, I got an idea. I'm gonna meditate. I'm gonna state this situation and I'm gonna tell my higher self, I'm gonna get those tarot cards. And there's 78 cards. Only one is the Antichrist card out of all 78 options. If the Hierophant comes up, it means I need to do something. But if it comes up upside down, reversed, I'll do it. I'll stop him. I'll do it. That's 1 out of 156. That's what my chances are. So it's very likely I'm not going to get that card. So I go to my cards like, oh, God. Oh, thank God. So I'm like, oh, man, what a close call. And I go to put it back in the box and I'm like, oh, fuck. Fuck, what does this mean? So I start crying. But then I knew what to do. I needed to share Dolores' information with the world. And I got trained in her hypnosis style. It's not to stop the prophecy. It's about holding love despite the prophecy. Hey guys, welcome back to the Apocalyptic Prophecy series. Before we get deeper into the Nostradamus predictions, I want to talk about a famous psychic named Jeane Dixon. She was one of the most famous psychics of the 20th century. In 1956, she published a prediction that the 1960 election would be won by a Democrat and that person would be assassinated in office. That person turned out to be JFK. She became an advisor to FDR. She told him that World War II would end in 1945. He died in 1945, but the war did end shortly after his death. She also became an advisor for Presidents Richard Nixon and Ronald Reagan. But on February 5th, 1962, the same date that came through in the Dolores canon books, Jeane Dixon had a psychic vision of the Antichrist being born. She said that his presence would be pretty unknown until the age of 30 when he came into power. She said that he would be a military figure, but also a phenomenon of political order. She said that he would come from the Holy Land, and that at the time he was in power, there would be an advanced communication system that would link the youth of the countries. She said that leading up to the Antichrist's destruction of the world, that the youth would become vulnerable because of chemical and biological warfare experiments on people. She said that there would be a government within a government that would damage social and economic factors, which would prepare the world for the Antichrist. She said that he would be known as the Prince of Peace and that he would promise civil liberty, equality, and reform. Now let's compare this to some of the Nostradamus predictions. Nostradamus says that the Antichrist will be seen as a great humanitarian and that he will win many peace prizes from countries around the world and maybe even a Nobel Peace Prize one day. that he will be loved for bringing prosperity to countries that are experiencing famine and loss, but that leading up to him taking his control of the world, economic chaos will spread beyond third world countries and will affect the major nations. Nostradamus says, leading to these times of trouble, the political situation of the United States would start to deteriorate. He says that within the government, there will be people who secretly serve organizations that can be traced back to banking families, as well as commodity families like gold, oil, and diamonds. And that initially these families just think that this Antichrist is just another world leader for their control. But eventually the Antichrist will turn on them, which will eventually backfire, because then the people who've been inciting wars will be gone or have lost their power, so the general public will really only want peace. He says that these organizations have the power to control inflation rates as well as unemployment rates. Nostradamus says there will be a vocal minority of people who are claiming that this person is the Antichrist. But because people see that he has only done good things, it will be a very unpopular movement. And next, we're going to talk about the evil mentor of the Antichrist and how he grooms him into his position and to fulfill his destiny for evil. Hey guys, welcome back to the Apocalyptic Prophecy series. We are still breaking down the Conversations with Nostradamus books by Dolores Cannon. And in this part, we're going to discuss the evil mentor of the Antichrist. Now, throughout the book, Nostradamus refers to him as an evil priest, but also as an evil imam. For the sake of this, we're going to call it the Antichrist's mentor. Now, these are some of the scariest parts of the book. So Nostradamus makes it very clear that at the time of these hypnosis sessions, that the Antichrist is not the Antichrist yet. So he corrects them several times throughout the book, and he's like, don't call him that. He's not the Antichrist yet. So he explains that there is a mentor who's kind of like an uncle to the Antichrist. And this person is a powerful religious figure in that community. But behind closed doors, this person is an extremely powerful magician. And part of this mentor's destiny is to groom the Antichrist for the end of times. So at one point, Nostradamus shows John the astrologer his looking glass, which is basically like a black mirror that he uses to get his visions. So in the time of 1987, he shows John, this is him today. And there's a meeting that's happening in Egypt. And he sees the Antichrist. And John is like, wow, this guy doesn't seem evil. He's like, actually, he's very magnetic and he seems pretty likable. And he's like, and his suit is so nice and he's wearing like a diamond or something. And Nostradamus says that's because he is not the Antichrist yet. At this point, he is still just a magnetic and charismatic man. However, his mentor is also in the room. And when John looks at the mentor, he just gets horrified and is like, oh my God, like this is just pure hate. And he starts clinching the chair while he's under hypnosis. Nostradamus explains that this man, this evil mentor, came from a nearby country and he saw the destruction of his own country, which turned him into a very dark person. And this evil priest allowed for a negative walk-in to enter his body. Now, a walk-in is different than demonic possession. In a walk-in, you completely allow another soul to take over the body and the original soul leaves. With demonic possession, the original soul stays in the body and a demon also inhabits it. So this negative entity that has taken over the priest is the energy of the Antichrist. And when this evil man dies, this negative walk-in is contracted to go into the body of the Antichrist, which would then turn him into the Antichrist. So Nostradamus makes it very clear that the Antichrist was not always the Antichrist and he was not always evil. But it is part of his destiny to allow this to come into his body and for it to take hold. This evil magician sensed John's presence in the room and then started psychically attacking John after this. Even throughout the book, Dolores experienced a psychic attack from this man. Next, we're talking about the last pope. Hey guys, welcome back to my Apocalyptic Prophecy series. I want to move through all of this dark stuff pretty quickly because I would like to get to the aspects of the apocalypse that are positive and bring on the golden age. But first, some evil popes. As we know, this is all coming from Conversations with Nostradamus by Dolores Cannon, and these hypnosis sessions were done in the 1980s. Nostradamus says there will only be 3 more popes. As we see right here, the pope before the last will have a very short reign. He said 3 popes before the last will be assassinated. Now this is going to bring us back to the 3rd secret. And this brings us back to the 1st and 2nd parts of this series. Father Malachi Martin had read the 3rd secret. He was one of very few people on earth who had read the original text of the secret. But because of his oath to the Pope, he was not able to reveal that secret. He died in 1999, and a year after his death, the Vatican released their version of the secret. And here's an archived article from the New York Times. In the year 2000, the Vatican said that the secret was about the attempted assassination of the Pope. This received a lot of backlash because many people believed that this was an edited version of the secret and that they were withholding the rest of the information. As we can see here, the quatrain and the interpretation of it, Nostradamus says that this attempt on the Pope's life would happen in a major European city and would be near 2 intersecting rivers. Now, Nostradamus said that he believes the last Pope is going to come from a Nazi family, and that there's going to be some controversy around him coming from a Nazi family. Now, although this did not end up being the last Pope, I would like to note that the whole Hitler Youth scandal with Pope Benedict did lead to him having a very short reign. And Nostradamus said that the Pope before last would not last long, that some political blunder and mistakes would make it easier for the last Pope to come into power. Nostradamus also says that the last Pope will be French or have a French connection. Again, just speculation, but our current Pope is named Francis. He says the last Pope will be a tool of the Antichrist and will allow him to go into the Vatican library. And now here's where things get really good. That because the Pope betrays his oath to the church and allows the Antichrist into the Vatican library, the Antichrist uses that information to dismantle the religious beliefs of the world, which causes a lot of harm and conflict between different experts and religious leaders. And it says, although the Antichrist goes about it the wrong way, releasing the knowledge to the world will help him to start working off the negative karma that he acquired by what he's done to the world. Nostradamus says that these events must be lived through in order for peace to eventually happen on Earth. Hey guys, welcome back to the Apocalyptic Prophecy series. I want to answer some questions about how they were able to actually contact Nostradamus. So as we know, this information came from Dolores Cannon. Dolores was a hypnotherapist who over the years developed her own style of hypnotism called QHHT, Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique. As I said in a previous video, I'm trained in this style of hypnosis, so I've put people under and I've been put under myself. What makes this style unique is that it regresses you to your higher self. So you would come to the session with a list of questions and your higher self will answer them. In conversations with Nostradamus, the first woman was a student of Nostradamus in a past life. So when she went under hypnosis and experienced a past life, that's how the connection with Nostradamus started. And when that woman didn't want to be a part of it, and Dolores had to find another subject, she had to use a different method to reach him. So then there was the woman Brenda. When she put Brenda under hypnosis, Brenda went to a place which is called the void sometimes in hypnosis. And this is a place in the astral between the planes of existence where it's just emptiness. And some people describe seeing some wispy smoke while they're there, kind of like 11 in Stranger Things. While in the void, Dolores connects with Brenda's higher self and asks to be brought to Nostradamus. Then Brenda basically perceives herself coming down into Nostradamus's home. And then she shows up in his black mirror, which has been used throughout history, similar to a crystal ball. And it's not usually glass. It's usually a volcanic rock, which has been smoothed, or it's an obsidian. Now, when John the astrologer went under, they used another technique to get there. When she regressed John, he went to the Akashic records. Now, the Akashic records is like a library in between the planes of existence, and it holds all the information. Every life that's ever been lived, any life that ever will be lived, every event that's ever happened, anything that ever will happen, and every possible timeline. The word Akash is a Sanskrit word that means ether, so it's almost like records in the ether. And now here's where things get very interesting. So John connects with a guardian of the records while he's there. His guardian explains that Only souls on this human level of existence see the records as a library. That for us, we resonate with the image of a library in books. But souls on different levels experience different things at the records. So then he brings John to the tapestry room. And what we would see as the individual books of someone's life, in the tapestry is simply a thread. So each soul has a thread, and each event intersects through the soul. And the more influential the person or the event, the thicker the thread would become. And Nostradamus's thread was thick like a rope made of gold. Hey guys, welcome back, and we're going to talk a little bit about the golden thread of Nostradamus. And you're going to be lost if you haven't watched the last video. So as we went over, in the Akashic records, it is also perceived as a tapestry. Each soul has a thread, and each event has a thread. And depending how influential these things are, how thick the thread will be. So since Nostradamus is such an influential person, his thread is so thick. And because his prophecies are going to help us get off the worst possible timeline of the apocalypse, his thread is golden. So basically, from the tapestry room, with the help of the guardian, John is able to go into the thread of Nostradamus, but he can't control which time of his life he gets there. Which is why we talked about earlier how John entered when Nostradamus was younger, and he told him about Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto, which is how Nostradamus wrote about those planets in his quatrains, even though they weren't discovered for hundreds of years later. So John and Dolores contacting Nostradamus earlier in his life, before he wrote the quatrains, actually influenced the quatrains. That then later in the 80s, they were going to go back to decipher. Simultaneous time, y'all. Simultaneous time. Nostradamus also told John there's 2 more planets that won't be discovered until 2040. Okay, so then John the astrologer is moving out of state. So now Dolores has the same problem again. She has no subject to contact Nostradamus. So on the last day that she has John, she puts him under hypnosis. He goes through the tapestry and through the thread, and they see Nostradamus later in his life. But Nostradamus is like, yeah, it's a really bad time. My son is getting christened. I have to go. And John and Dolores are like, yeah, but this is really important. We only have 1 more session left. Nostradamus is like, sorry, I got to go to my son's christening. So John tried to stay in the room. And then the guardian of the tapestry says that he's breaking the law of free will by staying in Nostradamus's room when Nostradamus asked him to leave. So John basically gets astrally pulled out of the room. So then Dolores gets a wild idea, and that's why I love her. She's like, if we can't find out through Nostradamus what's going to happen, what if I regress you 100 years into the future? If time is simultaneous, then regressing someone into the future would be the same exact thing as regressing them into the past. So Dolores regresses John 100 years into the future. So this is in 1987. So they go to the year 2087. So in the future, John is incarnated as a woman on Earth and says the world is only 10% land and 90% ocean. And she says that there's one world government, which was established in 2039. 2039 was 10 years after the shift. Now, coming up after this apocalypse series, we're going to go to the Earth Shift series. And stay tuned because NASA confirms this 2030 date. But first, the prophecy of 144,000. As we come to the end of this apocalyptic prophecy series, let's get into the prophecy of 144,000. And let's circle back to the book of Revelation. According to the Bible, there will be 144,000 souls who stand with the Lamb and had the name of the Father on their forehead. And throughout history, the forehead usually represents the third eye. Now, what is the Lamb? In Christianity, the Lamb is interpreted as Christ. but it also means purity, forgiveness. Many interpret the 144,000 as Christians, but it clearly states in the Bible that there's 12 tribes. But this is not only a Christian phenomenon. It also appears in Islam. It also appears in the Emerald Tablets of ancient Sumeria. It also shows up in Native American prophecies. But wait, there's more. This was a message channeled from Ra, the sun god. If something as extreme as a planetary explosion were to occur, the 144,000 or more christened beings would simply move into their ascension bodies and take the rest of the Earth's newly awakened people with them. The 144,000 christened ones will create a quantum leap for humanity. Now, what are the christened ones? If there's 12 tribes, there's going to be many different ways to interpret this. Some could see it as Christ the man. Others will see it as Christ consciousness. Some will see it as the crystalline structure. Christ consciousness is a unity consciousness. It's becoming self-aware that we're part of a universal system, which is why the second coming of Christ doesn't need to be a man coming back to earth. It could be humanity reaching the teachings that Christ was trying to share. Now remember, in Jewish gematria, 666 meant the devil. But what does 144 mean? Light. Now, light is not just good and evil. Light is information. Darkness is the lack of information, which is why it's called the Dark Ages, because nobody knew how to fucking read. And there was no advancements in society during that time. But wait, there's more. 144,000 comes up in the Mayan calendar. It's the highest form of measurement in the Mayan calendar. The Great Pyramid was made of 144,000 stones before people started stealing them. Okay, so this right here is the speed of light. But this is the miles per second if you're traveling on land. But when you're traveling in the air, it's nautical miles. And the speed of light is 144,000 nautical miles. The book of Revelation was originally written in ancient Greek. In ancient Greek, apocalypse doesn't mean destruction. It means to uncover, to disclose, to reveal. So the apocalypse is not the end. The apocalypse is the unveiling, the unfolding of things not previously known. So if there's almost 8 billion people in the world, how could 144,000, less than 1%, do anything? But it's already less than 1% that controls all the wealth, that has all the land. So of course less than 1% can change the world for the better. And that, my friends, is how we stop the Antichrist. also want to clarify, I saw a few comments that misinterpreted what I was saying at the end of the series. Some people thought that I meant the 1% is going to help us save the world. To be clear, the 1% that is currently in power would literally collapse the economy and destroy the planet before letting you even get a slice of bread for free, okay? So no, if we're waiting for the 1%, bye-bye planet Earth, okay? What I was saying is, don't fall into the belief that a small group of 144,000 could actually make a change in the world, because it's a lot less people than that who already control the world. So in this book, The Divine Matrix, he not only confirms this, he gives the exact formula. He talks about Maharishi, who was a yoga guru who popularized transcendental meditation, or TM. And he had a theory that he tested with tons of researchers over 40 different experiments, starting in 1972, where they took 24 US cities and took 1% of their population and had them focus on peace. And in those cities, the crime rate decreased, where in the other cities, it rose as normal. And now this didn't only affect their crime rates. It also affected traffic accidents, emergency room visits. You can't only do it in your mind, just like we've talked about throughout this series. It needs to include emotion. The change needs to happen from inside. If you're part of the hologram, then you need to change in order to change the whole hologram. So this became known as the Maharishi effect. We're using transcendental meditation to create a state of inner peace, not just visualizing peace, creating inner peace, would be able to ripple out and affect the entire city they were in. Now, you can find this book for free on archive.org. It's a great resource if you can't afford to support the authors, although I suggest you do if you can. But right here in chapter 4, they give the exact formula. Okay, so determine the total number of people present. Let's use the example of a city with 1 million people, like they do in the book. Calculate 1% of the total. Multiply by 0.01. Then take that number, 1% of the total, and find the square root of it. Now, I can't tell you how to do that, but it says press the V on your calculator. So really grateful for calculators. So in a city of 1 million people, only 100 people would have to experience inner peace for the Maharishi effect to take place and make positive change. Now, what about a world of 8 billion? So we would only need less than 9,000 people to make an effect. That's less than the amount of people that are going to see this video.
Hey guys, thanks for sticking around for the Apocalyptic Prophecies after show. All right, I just made that up. You might have watched the series originally when it was on TikTok, or maybe you're watching it for the first time tonight. But we have some additional information about the Antichrist for you today. We are going to get into some of that information coming up. But there's a few things I want to share first and catch you up on. And there's a lot of things that came up in this series that I didn't get to fully explain. When you see it all together like this, you know, and I mean, not to toot my own horn, it flowed pretty nicely. Very nicely, actually. I just rewatched it myself right now. Like I haven't been rewatching it, editing it for, like a month straight now. However, I did actually mostly skip past my parts and was mostly just working on the cool cinematic, dramatic stuff, so I hope you liked that. If you didn't, don't tell me in the comments, because I very much enjoyed working on that. Like, I don't know, it was like very cinematic stock footage, if I say so myself. So before we go any further, guys, make sure you subscribe. I would not normally say that. It's totally up to you. I don't want to impose on your free will like that. However, as you just saw at the end, we had that little peek at what's coming to jkultra on YouTube. Also, check out my Times Not Realty, little jkultra there. So it's going to be below. That's one way you can support me, by this cool shirt. Time's Not Real. It's based off of my Mandela Effect series. So that will be coming up. Make sure you subscribe. Also, the Earthshift series is on its way. That is next. And we also have the AD Alien series. And as you know, I am currently doing my Soul series on TikTok. So all of them actually are already available. So if you can't wait, subscribe and then go watch them on TikTok. But make sure you subscribe because there will always be additional information added to the YouTube version. Not just my cool cinematic stock footage. But anyway, so make sure you check out the jkultra store. I'll have it linked below. I have 4 shirt designs right now. I'm going to be actually retiring some. So if you like it, jump on it. I want to tell you something pretty interesting. Let's rewind a little without physically rewinding because I don't have the capabilities to do that right now. And I really just don't want to edit that back in. Let's mentally rewind to the Storytime part of this apocalyptic prophecy series. Now, that story is very consolidated into, a short TikTok video, and I won't tell you the entire thing because most of it has been told in that. The essence of it is in that. But there was some things that were left out. So, just to refresh your memory, during this, Nostradamus used Brenda's knowledge of the tarot cards to communicate certain messages to her because, like I said in that video, that basically, these tarot cards are symbols. They're basically, it's like a language. So each card means a lot. And he gave the cards of the Antichrist and the Pope. And I told you about my personal story with that, which really was it was a little bit of a breaking point for me mentally, just saying, because it is a lot of information to think you might know who the Antichrist is. How do you go about your day with that? And I actually on my screen right now have the journal entry that I wrote immediately after that. So as you know, I was very concerned about getting the Hierophant because it was the card of the Antichrist, inverted. I recalled my experience of basically finding out who the Antichrist was or believing I knew who it was. I could be wrong, of course, and which is why I don't also want to make any claims. One of the reasons. I could also be right, too, and then I also don't want to make some claims, you know what I'm saying? So I was really conflicted as what do I do with this information? Mind you, this was in 2020, so I had no idea that I was going to end up making a TikTok and sharing this information and this freaking weird, crazy story that I had alone in my apartment, where I was potentially losing my mind a little. Because I was like, what am I supposed to do with this information? What if I'm right? What if I'm just supposed to know who this person is and just allow them? And also... No, maybe that's not appropriate to say. Maybe I'll say it anyway. Sorry. I asked for some guidance during this. Yeah, they say no. So it wasn't completely unlikely that I could have bumped into this person. Just because where I worked, there was vacation homes of certain people. The type of place that I work frequented very, very, very upper people. I've met so many people and served so many people. And I've seen them when they think they don't have to be nice to you. So I really do feel like I have a good understanding of people's true personalities. Some people, some very influential people, because, everyone treats people nice who can do something for them. When you treat people who you believe are below you nice, I don't know. Not everybody does. So not completely out of the realm of reality that this person could have come into contact with me. And I was like, well, what do I do? I don't know what this is supposed to mean. Oh, well, I do know what this is supposed to mean, but I don't know how it looks on camera. But I don't know, a little something in the drink. I don't know. What am I saying? This is crazy. So anyway, I needed to know what I needed to do. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to ask for higher guidance, not just through meditation. I need physical proof because this shit is serious. So as you know, I don't pull that card. Thank God I don't pull this card inverted, because then I probably would have had to do something crazy. I don't know. But that was the card I told them, my guides. I don't know why I'm doing that whole gesture, but I told them that this is what you need. This is what you need to show me now. If this is what you want me to take a different path with this. So in the video, I ended up pulling the 3 of Pentacles, which was not the card that I pulled that day. That was just the card that I pulled for the video. I'll read it right here. Actually, it's on my screen. It says, okay, this is just the end of what I was writing. And then we'll get to that part. It says, I mean it. I'm not playing. I need a clear answer and I will never ask again. Please. So I get up from my meditation and I grab my tarot deck and I shuffle. My hands are shaking. My body is vibrating. I'm sweating. I'm questioning my sanity. I split the deck and I go to grab a card. My hand is trembling. My stomach is turning. I was so worried. I pull a card and it's the Hanged Man upside down. Phew. Oh my God. The relief. I started laughing. I feel my body coming down. I feel my state of mental leveling out. Wow, what a relief. I decided to draw 2 more cards because I felt incomplete. Neither were the Hierophant. The relief. I was so relieved. You have no idea how good that feels. I laughed at myself and I thought, I'm not going to incriminate myself. So as you read, I got the Hangman inverted. I'm going to read something to you. Something else. Conversations with Nostradamus, Book 1. Here we go. Okay. Now this part's a little fucked up, so warning. Let's see here. Okay. So here's the actual text. Not from my memory, not from my scared state, not from me retelling the story. Here's what it says actually in the book. Okay. These were the cards that Brenda saw in the hand of the Antichrist. So because Nostradamus used tarot as well, and he knows what each of them symbolize, he basically projected the image of those cards into Brenda's mind so that she could understand the Antichrist and the cards in his hand, like the power he has. I have laid down an inverted hanged man. The card that I pulled, the inverted hanged man, was actually the first card of the Antichrist. You don't know how disturbed I was during the Apocalypse series after I found this out. But mind you, those videos really blew up and really caused a lot of chaos, which I will get into in a second. I'll finish reading this. But I had to cut that series short. I wanted to go way deeper. And yeah, I almost started a witch hunt. And yeah, okay. I have laid down an inverted hanged man, an upright valet of batons. which translates to Page of Wands. Inverted Hierophant. Inverted Emperor. She says that this was in a superior position. So this was above the other cards. There was the cards. This one was on the top. So the inverted Emperor was like on top of all the other cards, even though she said it was, this is symbology. Even though she said it was in the Antichrist's hands, she also did see it as in his hands, but as laid out on the table as well. So the inverted Emperor was above all the other cards, which makes sense because, that's who he would be, like an inverted Emperor. Inverted Ten of Swords. Oh. Well, I grabbed the Nine of Swords. That must be for a reason. The inverted Ten of Swords that is overshadowed, meaning underneath the Emperor. So, just as an example, it was underneath. And the inverted... Oh, man, I grabbed wrong cards here. And the inverted Justice card, which I grabbed Judgment. Don't ask me why. The inverted Justice and the Wheel of Fortune. All right. So, yeah, that was pretty messed up, huh? The whole time, from the beginning, I had the Antichrist's first card the whole time. I'm glad I didn't realize that, because I would have done something crazy. Instead, when I got the Hierophant, and then, I couldn't just interpret it myself. I was too scared, because obviously my mind was running wild. I couldn't interpret it myself at the moment. So what I did was I looked up on Biddy Tarot. I really like Biddy Tarot. They have good explanations that are pretty broad enough to work into different situations. They usually give like 3 examples of how this could show up. And what came up is that you are trying to contact the subconscious mind. And on those exact days, as I was reading through, because I read these Nostradamus books like in a couple of days, and it was rare for me to read a book through that quickly, but I was hooked. And basically this Hierophant card basically is also contacting the subconscious mind, which is what the hypnosis that Dolores Cannon does is all about, contacting the subconscious mind and asking it questions. And I had been actually looking into doing the QHHT training, which is Dolores's hypnosis method, which is the hypnosis method used throughout all of this series. If you're not familiar with my other work or other videos. So that for me was the confirmation that I was trying to contact the subconscious mind. How do I do that? Well, maybe I should learn how to do Dolores's tarot. Also, just a little excerpt from my journal here that I have up on the screen. I really sat there and took in my reading, and then I heard some guidance in my mind. It said, "You are not meant to take the information in the book and run with it. You are to take the information in the book and learn how to obtain information for yourself." Then it started to dawn on me. I am not meant to take Dolores's work and use it in this way. I am meant to use Dolores's work. Sorry, like I said, I can't scroll. To spread her information to the world is, I'm sure, what it says, because that's how I feel. Okay, now that we've gone over that, I want to talk a little bit about the 3 antichrists. This was one thing that I was not able to keep in the series. It was just too long, too much information, and I just tried to keep it a little bit more on one track. But these are 3 volumes, these books. So And, we're taking from the Bible and this and that. There's a lot of different sources. So, I want to add some other things to it. So one of the things that Nostradamus talks about is that there was actually 3 antichrists. And the third one is the one that is prophesied to bring on the apocalypse, the uncovering of information, all of that. So the first one was Napoleon, he says. But Napoleon would only be considered an antichrist from a purely European view. He says the second antichrist was Hitler. Kind of obvious. And he said now the entire world acknowledged Hitler. He said that the third antichrist would be worse, would be the worst antichrist of all. And actually that the 2 previous antichrists set the way for them to, for the third to come into power. Now, let's go back to John the astrologer. Why did John the astrologer end up being involved with this? It turns out that this was karmic debt for John the astrologer. So, in John's previous life, this is one of the things that he found out when he went under hypnosis to do this work with Nostradamus. He regressed to a past life, which he saw through the Akashic records. He was the astrologer to Hitler in his past life. This is one, why John is really good at astrology, because he's done it in multiple lives. 2, he assisted the last Antichrist. So actually, he chose a life where now he would assist Dolores in sharing the information about the Antichrist with the world, along with all the information that then Dolores would share after this. Because you remember, this is very early on in her books. This all happened in the 80s. It was during the 80s, during this Nostradamus stuff, is when she first started to hear about that there would be an earth shift. It's a physical shift. It's a shift in consciousness. And it can set us on a timeline where none of this needs to occur. The apocalypse doesn't need to happen in this way. The Antichrist doesn't need to come to power. Feeding into, which is why, this is a complicated topic, because I don't want to give people information to feed into a dark timeline, which was actually, accidentally what I did in this series, which is why I followed it up with the Earthshift series, because then I was like, whoa, I need to give people the information of how to shift their timelines, how to raise their consciousness, and how to make sure that we shift this planet to the highest timeline possible where none of this happens. So like I said, again, make sure you subscribe, because that's all going to come out. It's already out on TikTok, but it will have additional information here. So yeah, John was the astrologer to Hitler in his past life, because apparently Hitler did use, like all the world leaders, used astrology to figure out certain things, makes them, especially in battle, especially when you're freaking conquering and doing genocide and stuff. There's certain alignments that probably make that better for you, or easier for you, whatever the frick Saturn's doing. So that said, I'm gonna, and stay tuned. There's still going to be some info at the end, additional information about the Antichrist. But I do want to share that, this series got, very viral. I think the finale 144,000 video has like 1.5 or 2 million. I haven't even checked. I was not really prepared for that. It really set this whole path for me that I didn't realize was going to happen. This whole experience of me figuring out this information, going down this rabbit hole, I had no idea in 2020 that this experience was going to lead me to doing this right now, today. Like, I didn't even think about doing this. Not going to say that's not true, because I did kind of think about, sharing information with people, helping teach them certain things, certain topics about metaphysical stuff. Sorry, I got a headache. I don't know why. I say sorry more in these videos than I say in my whole entire adult life added together. I give them out for free here, but I don't give them out for free nowhere else. So, yes, I want to tell you a little bit about my personal story of this going really viral, especially the birth chart part. That got really crazy, and everyone was like, who's the Antichrist? And I was like, oh, shit. I accidentally might have started a witch hunt, which would be really stupid on my behalf because clearly, I mean, it's the Antichrist. It's his destiny. You're not going to stop destiny. Imagine someone stopped your destiny. They can't. So imagine the destiny of the Antichrist. People can't. My destiny. Who knows that I was going to be here? Everyone will end up on their destiny, so you can't really stop them. Also, like I said in the series, it was important for the Antichrist to do all of this because this is what triggers the real golden age, which, you know, frees humanity from the lies that we've been told. So, you know, hopefully we don't need to go on that timeline at all. If we did end up on that timeline, which I will tell you, before Dolores died, she did say in some of her interviews that we are not on that timeline. This timeline that Nostradamus was talking about, we passed it. It didn't happen. The consciousness was raised enough people had a good vibration, enough souls came to this planet with high vibration, enough people had love. Even though it might not seem like it, it doesn't need to be that much, like we said in that little clip from the Earthshift series, which shows that we only need like less than 9,000 people to really truly embody pure peace and love to really shift this planet into a place that's better. 144,000 maybe to shift it into another dimension, but to just bring the vibration up. It really doesn't take that many people. So when all of this was going down, as you guys know from my previous videos, I do consult with the Akashic records. I did right before this video and asked them, you know, I'd like to be guided on the information that I'm giving because I want to be responsible with it, because I do give a little kooky information that might make people a little crazy. So I like to ask the records what to share. And sometimes there's stuff that's real juicy that I want to share, that maybe isn't for the best good. And when I did the whole birth chart thing and the mark of the beast, it was like, I put those out. Mind you, I randomly started doing this series. It says that the birthday of the Antichrist is February 5th. How by the universe did I end up recording that video on February 5th? I did not plan that because it was actually the video right before that I was like, oh, the birth chart of the Antichrist. Then some people, I guess, Googled it and they were like, oh my God, it's today. And it was that day, because then I looked and I was like, oh my God, that's today's date. Like I didn't even realize what day it was when I was doing it. And I was like, what is the chances that I would do this video on the birthday that it says, that the same birthday that Jeane Dixon said, or Jeane Dixon, sorry, that Jeane Dixon said, and Nostradamus, which Nostradamus didn't give a date. He gave an astrological alignment, which they traced back to that date. So after that was like popping off and like my comments were going crazy, I had to filter my comments. It was getting out of control. I was actually like, I had a bad feeling. I was like, oh no. Ooh, I feel like I did something wrong. Oh boy. I don't like that. First of all, I don't like to do anything wrong and I don't like making mistakes. So I was like, oh shit. And this is like a spiritual mistake. So I better be careful. So I asked the Akashic records, and literally when I tell you that when I accessed the records, my guides, I just felt this energy. Like, it's not that they're like human, but that was just I felt like hands on hips, like, really? Really? And I asked them, I'm like, oh God, did I do something wrong? Oh, this must be why I grabbed that other wrong card, because this was the card I got then. See, that's what I mean. Every mistake, everything, it's always for a reason. I grabbed the wrong card. This is the card that I got that day. Right when I did this Akashic reading, I asked, for some guidance, and they gave me the Judgment card. As you can see, this is an angel. I don't know, one of the archangels. And then there's all these people coming out of the graves. Basically, there's consequences. And yeah, there's judgment, not saying that, when I go to, the afterlife, I'm going to be so judged for this. It was more so like the message that I got from it was that there's consequences for everything. And basically, the Akashic Records told me I did not, when I gave that information, it was not information that everyone was ready for. I already gave the information, so that's why I'm giving it again. But I did ask them first, and they did tell me to, take some parts out. So there is a couple very short things that are still on TikTok. Nothing super significant. Not everyone was ready for this information. Not everyone would use this information in a constructive way. This information is not uplifting. So they didn't say that I shouldn't do the videos. They just said that there's consequences for giving information to people that are not ready. And so then I was like, oh man, I better counteract it, because the last thing I want to do is, screw up my karma now after all the work I did. So that was why I decided I needed to do the Earth Shift series, because people did need to know how to shift the timelines. And it actually ended up working out perfectly, because you did need the basis of like the worst case scenario before we show you the best case scenario, which is what the Earth Shift goes through. And it also has the maps from the Nostradamus books of the end of the world, just saying. Here's a couple of other things about the Antichrist, since you guys have been so patient and so supportive, and I'm just so grateful for this whole entire platform. Okay, so here's some other cool stuff from the book. One, this is not about the Antichrist, but it's really interesting, and it lines up with some of the other things that we've heard about, which comes up later in the Alien series that I did. So it says that there's actually 2 other planets that we're going to discover. Nostradamus says this in the Conversations with Nostradamus book by Dolores Cannon. He says that actually in the year 2040, we're going to discover 2 new planets, that it's coming from an overlapping solar system. So there is another solar system which is very close to us. It's a binary system which has 2 stars. We are going to discover 2 planets. And it says these 2 planets, when they are discovered, one is going to rule Virgo and one is going to rule Libra, because any of you people who are into astrology know that Virgo and Libra are ruled by planets that are also ruling other signs, because, there's more signs than planets. Actually, there's not. Actually, there's 2 extra that we haven't discovered yet. So that I just find beyond fascinating. We also know from this series and from the books that when Nostradamus was able to look into John the astrologer's mind through the communication they were having through hypnosis, the way he was able to look into Brenda's mind and be able to project images of tarot into hers. He could also retrieve images from John's conscious mind and unconscious mind. So when John was thinking about like modern astrology and modern planets and stuff, that's actually how Nostradamus knew about planets that hadn't been discovered for hundreds of years after his death. You know, he talks about Neptune and Pluto, and he talks about these planets that were not discovered yet. And of course, you could just say, you know, those were Greek or Roman gods. So basically, yeah, he was just using those names because those names already existed. Maybe he wasn't trying to talk about planets during that, even though. So when this, for me, is some confirmation. So when Nostradamus sees the astrological information in John's mind, he applies it to his own birth chart because now he has these extra planets and a different type of astrology than what he's been working off of. So this part is so funny. He says, I see. My wife died. Pluto in the 7th house. Destruction in relationships. And I mean, I told you, when you actually read the books, Nostradamus is actually so entertaining because he has so much personality that comes through. And like I said, he's a dick. He's a chauvinist. I will add that to this too. He hates women, which, come on, were we going to cancel someone from the 1500s? Grow up. So yeah, that for me confirmed it because Nostradamus never shared his birthday or his birth chart with John. He said that was private and he didn't want anyone to know that information about him. But it's funny that when he got that information about Pluto, he immediately related it to his life because, as we know, his first wife had died in the pandemic, Black Plague. So one of the other things that was interesting from the book is what a chauvinist Nostradamus is. He was so bothered when he realized that Dolores was a woman because obviously he's going through the subject. He's going through Brenda or Phil or John or the other people that ended up being in the third book. And when he finds out that Dolores is a woman, he's like, oh, women. Great. And then she's like, well, she asks him, like, why do you dislike women so much? He's like, you know, they're just so annoying. And he starts talking about that he has like a servant that lives in his house and that the servant girl always asks him questions about things that she should figure out on her own. He's like, yeah, like she knocked on my door the other day and told me one of the goats got out. He's like, why are you telling me one of the goats got out? Go get the goat and put it back. Well, that's not what I pay you for. And yes, he paid this person. Also, another interesting thing about that, Nostradamus, when John was there in his space, he was like, I need to show you something very special. And he really loved John. He loved John the astrologer. He just thought John was great. He was like, John, come back anytime. You are always welcome here. And so he shows John this like closet. And in the closet is like a toilet, like not a modern toilet, but like an outhouse toilet. And he's like, you know, he's just like in hypnosis. He's telling Dolores, he's like, yeah, he's showing me something. It's a closet. Huh. I think it's a bathroom. And he's like, he's very proud of it. And then he was like, oh, because people didn't have indoor bathrooms at that time. It was a luxury that he had created for himself, that he was like, I get to go to the bathroom in here, like inside. I don't need to go out there. So, you know, different times. But those are just some of the parts that I enjoyed because, I don't know, there was just like interesting things. It wasn't all, about the quatrains and the Antichrist and all of that stuff. There was a lot of these other moments that were very interesting. So we have a lot of information about some different things. So one of the things that is really interesting, so a lot of people ask about the Mabus thing. Like there's Mabus, like Mabus, Mabus. It comes up in basically all of like people prophesizing about the Antichrist. They say that's the name of the Antichrist. You know, a lot of people, I've seen the videos of people claim that Mabus, if you do all this stuff to it, it says Obama. Let me tell you, there's nothing in this book that suggests it's Obama. And oh God, if I can find my page, Mabus was not the name of the Antichrist. She asked him because people had already been speculating about that in the 80s. So she was already aware of the whole Mabus thing. And she said that Mabus was actually connected to a comet, and that basically it was just prophesizing about a comet that could possibly happen in the 80s that would lead to a Middle Eastern leader dying and causing a revolt. So like in the 80s or 90s, that would happen. Okay, so they also say that after the time of the Antichrist, that is what's going to bring on a green revolution. Green meaning that people go back to the earth. And they say that basically communities are going to move beyond family, that our immediate family is not going to be the way we perceive family anymore, that actually our communities are going to be perceived as family. People are going to go back to the earth. They're going to go back to the crops. They're going to want to start growing their own food. They say it's going to be part of a new age movement, and that people are basically going to go back to the basics willingly because they wanted to, because they got so disconnected with the earth and the energy of the earth, and that they were going to reclaim the land in a way that it would be used properly. Now, speaking of planets that were not discovered in Nostradamus' time, Saturn. Well, actually, Saturn you can see. Anyway, regardless, my point was, he says that the Antichrist will rule, will be in power for the time of a Saturn return. So the Saturn return will be his entire peak of his rule. So Saturn return is about 29.5 years. So if we look back to what was said in the Apocalypse series, that the years that he was going to come into power was going to be in the late 90s to early 2000s. Which would kind of leave us back to the 2029 idea that continues to come up, which is going to come up a whole bunch more in the Earthshift series. But in this, you know, when John the astrologer regresses or progresses to a future life, he's told that this Earthshift happens in 2029. So they basically say that this earth shift is going to cause a lot of destruction with flooding. And then this is going to be the time that the Antichrist, he has been consolidating power for a long time. And basically meaning like consolidating power, meaning like removing power from, you know, maybe elected officials, removing power from other family members who might be influential, removing power from people in nearby countries. He was going to be consolidating the power so that it's all under him, but that this was going to happen silently. and that it wasn't going to be pretty much until once shit starts going down in certain parts of the world where he really like takes it. Because like they said, he will be considered a great humanitarian and a great peacekeeper before that time. Like we said before, that a vocal minority of people will say that it's him, and it will be an underground movement. However, no one's going to believe those people. They're going to say they're crazy, and some of them might get killed for saying it. So, like what I'm saying, don't be doing crazy shit in the comments. Economic chaos will spread. Okay. Now, this part is very interesting. It's about how he comes into power. So it says, I can't find the page. It's useless. He's going to come into power, not from a regular line of succession. He says that he believes there's a line of succession, but it's not the original order of the line of succession. He says that basically it's either going to be from his dad or his uncle, that basically there's different timelines, and he will either take this power from his dad, meaning this political power that he comes into, this, global power, will either come from his father or from his uncle. And it's not going to be just a regular line of succession. Something's going to happen. One of them is going to die. He said whoever dies first is who he takes the power from. That it will either be taking this power from his uncle, taking this role that he comes into, or he'll be taking it from his father, so that there will not be a regular line of succession. It won't just be like passing on to the son, and that was the plan. It will be kind of like he jumps the line in succession. So, quite interesting. Quite interesting. Just saying. There's also some other timelines that were talked about, which were possibilities. One of these possibilities was the fall of the English royal house. And that basically, he says that, there is a possibility that there would be biological warfare, and that this biological warfare would eventually get to the royal family, and it would cause certain male people to die. And that basically, he says, the virus will have different effects on men and women. It's designed to distinguish between X or Y chromosomes. One of my notes here, I can't say that word on YouTube. They said if England wants to continue the monarchy, they will have to look to more distant lineages, an unexpected source. So if they continue the monarchy, it wouldn't be the original line of succession either. It would be some other distant relative that they would have to give the power to, who was maybe not related fully in the way that they wanted. Male descendants would die of disease released from bio warfare designed to specifically affect men. Very interesting. He also says, she asks about, would the Antichrist take over the United States? He said no, that this was going to happen throughout the Middle East and spread to Europe, and it would spread a little bit more before everything goes completely, sunken water, end of the world shit. But he said no, that the U.S. actually by that time was already going to be affected by the Earth shift. So they were not really in a position to be taken over anyway, because the U.S. was going to be basically islands by that point. Sad, right? the Antichrist dies during the Earth shift. So during the, maybe not the initial parts, he says that basically some parts of the world would be affected more early on, that his area of the world in the Middle East would not be until later on in the thing. So that would also lead to some of the chaos of him taking over. It would be displaced water, so that the shift would displace the water. Not that the water would necessarily just rise. It would be basically thrown in places that it wasn't, as well as earthquakes it would cause. It says, Nostradamus says that the soul of the planet stops him. So that's very interesting. We know that Gaia, Mother Earth, is a living being. The way that we have cells in our body, we are cells of Gaia, and she is also like a cell of the universe. The soul of the planet stops him, actually, through natural disaster and extreme weather. It talks about a triangle, and 2 of the cities are in California, and they will both have earthquakes. One other thing, too, Nostradamus, he was always throwing cheap shots at everyone, especially Dolores. And he said, it's obvious people of your day are not very educated in ancient history. Like, he was always throwing cheap shots. So, once again, some of the things that the Antichrist would be doing before he becomes, out of control, would actually be promising civil liberties, reform, new philosophy, that actually he wasn't going to be as religious, that it was going to be more technological, more progressive, more advanced. Yeah, that the political situation in the U.S. had been deteriorating for a while before this happened. Okay, yes. So one of the things that the Antichrist would be involved in, and one of the things that would be happening in the world on this horrible timeline that we're not even going to have to worry about it happening, because we're going to do the Earth Shift series, and we're going to find out exactly how to, help ourselves. So when the Antichrist rises to power, eventually he's going to want to eliminate people who are not really, in his mind, contributing to society. Elderly, sick, different people. And by that time, everyone's medical records will be accessible. So at that point, people wouldn't really be able to hide their medical information anymore, because it will be already too late. Everyone had already handed it over through technology and everything. Okay, so Thursday, Thor, one of the quatrains that talks about the word Thor, Thor is for Thursday, and he says that Thursday is the Antichrist's day. I don't know if that means he was born on that day, he comes into power on that day. I don't know. He freaking loves Thursdays. I don't know, but that's what they say. They say the Antichrist's day is Thursday. That his name will be long and hard to... That his name will be long and not sound pleasant to Western ears. That basically this name was going to, not be John Smith. That it was not going to be basically an appealing name to Westerners, specifically Americans. However, he says, but look up the meaning of his name. He says the way that Leo or Leonard means lion, his name means something, and it means that for a reason. So you need to look into the meaning of his name to better understand his purpose and what he's doing and why he's doing it. So whoever you might think it is, check into the meaning of the name. He said that this plan of the apocalypse, of the Antichrist, of it all, he says this plan goes back to the Ottoman Empire. This was designed and thought out and planned from the Ottoman Empire. So that's how far back it goes. This was not something that, our global elite, our banking families, our commodity families, our government, our corporations. This was not their idea, which goes back to confirm how basically this cabal initially think he's just like another one of their puppets. And he's not, because they don't realize that this was the plan long before they were ever in charge. They were like, they think they're the bad motherfuckers. They don't realize the bad people before them came up with this. So, yeah, paths of power from a dead family member. Yeah, he would jump the line in succession from his father or his uncle, whoever died first. That when Jupiter was in Leo between 1990 and 1991, he would gain local power. So he wouldn't gain global power. He would gain power locally in his area. And that would be the beginning of the consolidation of power. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for being here. Make sure you subscribe, follow me on TikTok if you want to watch the next series and don't want to wait for the additional info. You can always come back and watch it when it's available. Get yourself a jkultra shirt if you would like. I'm going to link my Venmo and Cashapp below. You can always leave me a nice little tip, a little something for my work. And I'm going to be probably starting a Patreon at some point where I'm going to do the real deep dives. So when I do that, I'll be adding the link to it later. I don't have it right now. I haven't started it yet, but it will be added to the description. Of course, you can always go check it out there, jkultra. I'm sure I'll be using that name. Anyway, guys, thank you so much. I'm so excited I'm already on my 7th series. So there's already 7 series coming up. So you have so much coming your way. Thank you so much. And yeah, stay tuned.